Well, we'll start up. This will probably be a really short one, unless you have a lot of things you want to talk about or chat about. Um, so I think we're in getting into our routine, or firmly ensconced in a routine here at DEP and Wayside Cleanup, in what I guess is week 7 by our count. The big news for us in the past week, and for I guess for all of Massachusetts, is that our stay at home order from the governor is extended to May 18th, which for us was certainly not surprising. But what is now different, we're beginning to hear more talk about envisioning what it will be like to go back to work, and thinking about kind of the nuts and bolts of doing that, and kind of how quickly that will happen once we get the okay to do that. Kind of looking at the flexibility of work at home policies, looking at the issues involved with commuting, particularly for those of us who take the subway, a very scary thought. Kind of the placement of the cubicles, and kind of how close staff are relative to each other once we do get back into work. So all of those, and of course the bottom line of having enough PPE available for staff, enough masks, enough gloves, sterilization solutions, to clean surfaces, make sure that we have all that in stock before we ask people to start coming back. So we don't have any certainly no inside knowledge beyond what the outside world has heard from the governor as well, but we're beginning to think about what the new normal is going to look like when we go back, and recognizing it's not going to look like it did before, and we'll be at least making some accommodations for continued separation and minimizing contact, and prioritizing work as we go back. So that will be certainly taking up some part of our time over the next couple of weeks, putting those details together. As far as PPE goes, a couple big things from our point of view is EPA is going to be, if they have not already, sending about 30,000 cloth face masks to support wastewater treatment plant operators and public water supply system operators, so that kind of basic essential services, that infrastructure can continue on and can continue to be staffed in a safe and protective way. So DEP is working with kind of regional organizations within the state to distribute the material once we get it from EPA. And we're working with MEMA and kind of the big picture state people ordering and getting our own PPE. The state is doing bulk purchases rather than each agency individually trying to negotiate and find and pay for PPE. And that seems to be working out better now, and the orders are actually coming in quicker. So things are, like I said, looking up, kind of becoming a bit more of a routine for us. We're still kind of taking phone calls, taking emails, doing necessary external emergency response and site work, and planning for the day when we're going to go back, whether it's May 18th or sometime after that, or probably on a sliding scale. So how are you guys doing? And do you have any questions? Remember, you can unmute yourself.
I have a question. This is Carol Boyce.
Hey, Carol.
Guess I should put my video back on. Nothing to hide here. I sent it in already to the BWSC email, but it was about AULs and the fact that the registries were closed for a while.
Mhm.
They're open on a limited basis, mail only, I believe. So I guess I got a reply back that we should do a notice of delay, but I just kind of wanted to hear what the level of reassurance maybe from DEP about, considering that situation.
Carol, I was the person that responded to your email, and I think your question was about filing an AUL at the registry, and it was related to meeting a deadline. So it seemed to fall within the same guidance we've been giving, is if it's holding up a deadline. I guess I didn't know, it wasn't in your question whether it's a permanent solution deadline. I wasn't sure. But that would fit the notice of delay guidance that we've been giving out. Also, we did check yesterday on the status of the registries, because as you know, they all have, they all are their own, make up their own decisions, I think, in terms of opening and how things are being filed. And we did find that most of them have some way of doing filing, and we pulled together a matrix of the status of the different registries. We haven't really QC'd that yet, but I'd be happy to share that with people at some point. We just went to their different websites and pulled together the filing information.
Can I add to that? This is Peggy, because I helped pull that information together. That was information that was current as of yesterday, and several of the registries said on their web pages, please check with us because they're updating stuff daily. But most of them you can deliver. They have a box outside, some of them, not all of them. Some of them you can mail it in, and all of them seem to still have electronic filing if they had it before. So that's the current status as of yesterday afternoon.
Okay, but there was I thought I read on the registry, when I looked at some of the like Middlesex or whatever, we're in Middlesex South. So they were totally closed until April 24th, was my understanding anyway. Is that, so I just, if there's a way the department can recognize that, yeah, there was this period of 6 weeks when there was no access to, or whatever it was, when there was no access.
The doors are closed. You can't, all the registries are closed, but there are people working at the locations. So, and they have limited filing. So I think the best advice is to contact the particular registry, go on their webpage, because they are updating their information. I can't recall Middlesex South in particular, but I know they had some form of recording documents, but it varies by registry. So it's best to contact each registry, the appropriate registry, to see what their procedures are.
But I think the bottom line, to get to Carol's kind of question, is that the guidance that we do have out there that talks about kind of documenting and describing the problems that you're having, the issues you're having, such as the registries are physically closed, the staffing may be limited, it's taking, there are alternative approaches that take more time, that may not be up and running, that the processes, as Peggy noted, are, may change from day to day about how they're doing that. All of, that sort of thing would be described in the notice of delay. And with that, from a DEP enforcement point of view, we would look at that and say that, we understand that would be covered by this policy, and that we would not be taking enforcement actions. It would be fine for there to be a delay, a missed deadline in that regard, until you were able to do that, actually make the filing. So that is the purpose of that policy, and kind of the documentation in the notice of delay, the description of the problems that you're having, and your plans for kind of how it will eventually get filed would be what we'd be looking for.
Okay, that's helpful. I will lower my hand, but I had one other related question, which is, so that was what I was getting to. So that's really helpful. And it was for a permanent solution. And the other bit of this is if it causes you to not so much miss a deadline, but run into the, and I don't know if you addressed this, if you ran over your anniversary date, then you now launch into having more fees. So what's going on with the anniversary dates and the fees? Is that getting delayed or what? And if you haven't figured it out, that's fine. Just
Yeah.
say
We haven't figured that out yet. I don't think we've been asked specifically about that, Liz.
because it would be the difference, say, between like a $4,000 hit for a year and a 800 if you're, or whatever, if you, or not. So.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's fair to say we haven't figured that out yet. I think we have an idea of how we think it should work, but I don't think wayside cleanup is the sole, makes the sole decisions on fees. So we would have to, discuss that more. I think that's something we could start to look into.
Okay, that would be helpful because otherwise we're rushing like crazy because we're going to get another $4,000 hit for a year, which is a lot. So for municipality or whatever it is, whoever.
Yep.
Yeah, thanks.
Paul, it looks like
Yep.
Dot has her hand up.
Oh, sorry. I was just writing down notes to make sure we address Carol. Dot.
Hey, how are you guys? I just wanted to put my 2 cents in on the registry discussion and just urge all LSPs to check each location because everybody is doing it differently, although they have been putting out some guidance and some memos. I'll forward what I've got related to wetlands folks, but it's all based on what you need to do with registries. I'll forward it over to Liz, and if it can be beneficial, that'd be great. But the biggest thing I've learned over the past couple of weeks is every single registry is making slightly different decisions, and just check with your registry. That's the bottom line I've learned.
Thanks, Dot.
Anybody else raising their hand? I don't see any. Do I need to start calling on you to ask how you're doing?
Paul, I have a comment. This is Cole Worthy.
Yep. Hi, Cole.
So we were kicking around some discussions yesterday internally in our office about a client contractor who has some close connections with Mayor Marty Walsh, and he has been sort of talking about when construction resumes and taking some necessary protocols for the COVID. And they were even discussing that there might be a requirement to disinfect the construction materials coming onto the site, such as rebar or structural steel, which comes onto the property. And obviously there's some concerns with that, both affecting, if there's like a in situ bioremediation program, the bleach would kill the bugs, and also the spraying of the bleach disinfectant, could harm people in the way. And I don't know how the department would like to weigh into that before it becomes a requirement. It just seems like it's a little bit much to be able to do that. And it also would affect any polymer slurry that we have as part of our supportive excavation.
Huh. Yeah, so Cole, maybe if you can, if you know kind of within the city of Boston, the staff that are actually kind of working on that rather than going to Marty Walsh directly.
Right. Yeah, I can certainly get some more information from our client contractor, but
yeah,
it was at a very high level, so I can see who other contacts that more appropriate to reach and have discussions with.
Yeah, because I mean, often there are broad statements made like that at a high level, but when you actually get into the details with the staff that are working on it, that sort of, those kind of considerations hopefully can be easily incorporated into it as long as they're aware of it.
Okay.
At least I hope so.
So do I.
All right. Anybody else? Anything else we want to talk about, or anything from the regions on how things are going? Steve, I don't see anybody else from the regions.
Hi, Paul. Yeah, I don't really have a whole lot to say. We've got we're doing as much as we can. I was in the office yesterday for a few hours, and we're moving forward on one of our contracts, a brownfield contract up at Merrimack Paper in Lawrence, and got a conference call today about Conway Park. Joanne Fagan and I and the staff have a meeting just to keep everybody informed. So, just plugging along.
Okay, Matt Hackman put up his hand. Matt, do you?
I see the chat. I was just the notarization change on April 27th, which helps, but only if your notarized signature is in, or is a resident of Mass, I understand.
Luke, do you have detail about the notary?
I don't. Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Okay, yeah, I don't, but we can certainly look into that. I know that guidance came out in the last couple of days.
So we'll look into it, Matt. And so the question.
Well, not really a question, just
a comment.
That was one of the issues we were having in the delay in trying to get notarized signatures for things associated with like AULs, and but it's alleviated. Fortunately, the owner is in Massachusetts, so.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, Chris.
Hey, Paul. It's Chris Gill, Gulf Oil. I just had a question. You had brought up how you guys are preparing to go back to your office. We're doing the same thing, and obviously we're going to be using more gloves, masks, things of that nature. The question came up: is that going to be considered medical waste, or are there going to be any regulations being generated as to how to handle that material? We're looking at isolating it at this point, not going out with the regular trash, paper and things like that. But is there going to be any guidance on handling that material coming out? Thanks.
So luckily that's not a wayside cleanup thing specifically, but I think we'll be running into the same questions that you have. So I'll ask our Bureau of Air and Waste. Typically they work with the Department of Public Health on issues that involve medical waste, because there's kind of overlapping jurisdiction and concerns there. Have you checked on the mass.gov COVID page yet? Because I would think that that's something that would have come up earlier in the process. I know even in our internal discussions that there had been, I vaguely remember some discussions about whether this stuff would be medical waste, and kind of moving out of kind of our jurisdiction. It was one of those things that we weren't regulating, so we would be less concerned about it. So I think it would be more directly in Department of Public Health's area, and I'd be willing to bet right now that they probably have some guidance on it. But I'll check with our air and waste people as well.
Yeah, just so I did do some outreach and some background checks. That's why I was kind of bringing it up here. I know I'd have kind of a direct line with you.
Yeah.
the general thought process coming out of most people is that it's going to go as regular trash. I don't know if you've been to like any Home Depots or supermarkets. They just putting 5-gallon buckets out for people to throw the stuff in. There's no controls. So yeah, I haven't seen anything specific on it, but I'm going to keep an eye on those websites, but I thought I'd just put it out there. Thank you.
I would think that that would have been, you know, a kind of basic question to answer early on. You know, certainly, I've seen the market basket parking lots littered with masks and gloves. So how you dispose of that must be a question that's being answered. But we'll find out. Yeah, and whether or not we burn them or what happens to them, I'm sure they'll be appropriately taken care of. So anything else? So you've all adjusted well and are kind of persevering, I guess being the right word to use. Okay, well, in that case, so we'll follow up a little bit on the, try to be clear on the AUL question, and to the extent that we can provide that matrix one way or another, with the caveat that, you know, it's only good for the day that we actually looked at the website. Maybe we can do that. Cole had question follow up on the Boston construction policy and potential disinfection issues. And then we'll follow up on the kind of disposal of all of this waste material. And that will affect us as well, and our building management in Boston, of what happens to our waste. So we'll see what we can come up with for that.
And Paul, we had one more question about fees.
Oh, and the fees question, yes. Yep, that I actually had that written down, the tier 1 classification, and missing that. Okay, so with that, if nobody has any other questions or comments, suggestions.
Oh, this is Cole again, sorry.
Yep.
I just have one more sort of comment, inquiry, I guess, is, do you know what the plan might be for the LSP board to resume and start meeting again, just to approve some of the outstanding courses that are looking for CEUs? Do you know what that status might be?
Yes, I have some information that they are working to set up an additional a meeting to deal with the pressing issues. As you all know, we talked about the last meeting that they tried to do online was Zoom bombed and had to be curtailed after about 20 minutes. So there was a lot of actions that were still to be taken from that. So we are, we meaning the EEA, I guess, and the executive office working with the board and DEP IT folks are trying to set up a process in a meeting environment that will be more secure, so that will happen. So I expect actually guidance from EAIT any minute now. They promised it today, about recommending software. So it will probably be something that will work like a webinar, and there will be the opportunity for having an audience, but better controlling the audience. The audience will be able to watch and listen, but there will be much stronger controls on the extent to which they can participate. And the software will also allow for the board itself, a collection of individuals acting as a panel, to have interaction, to talk with each other, to put things up on the screen. So once we have the recommendations and have the software and practice with it, then the LSP board is kind of the high priority for trying that out. There is, a movement away from this kind of meeting with with Zoom because of the potential security concerns. You know, we took the steps of putting in the password to minimize potential for Zoom bombing. But this is more of an informational, informal meeting. So if it gets disrupted, you know, we learn a lesson and we try something else. The LSP board, and not more importantly, but also importantly, DEP is going to be holding public hearings on proposed regulations soon, and we need to have a more secure format and process for holding those meetings as well. So we're all learning as we go along, and the LSP board is one of the higher priorities to actually get that up and running and working for them.
Thank you.
So at some point we may shift this to some other platform, depending on what EAIT is recommending or requiring us to do. But I could see like our advisory committee meeting, which for the, you know, right now would still be scheduled for May, the 4th Thursday in May. So we're still a few weeks away from that. And even if we're back and things are opening up, that is likely to be done virtually. And we would probably use whatever software that has a panel with a better controlled audience as a way of hosting that. So we'll see what that comes. Okay, if there's nothing else, then we'll close this down. Oh, one last thing. If you want to send us your thoughts about kind of how useful this is, you know, on weeks like this week where we don't have a lot of big news to convey, if it's useful for you guys to just touch base and ask questions, that's great. We could also, you know, go to every other week or something. But, you know, we'll still plan on being here next Thursday at 9 o'clock. If you want to come and ask questions. So have a good day, or maybe see you next week, and talk to you soon. Goodbye. Goodbye.
Thanks, Paul.
Just watch everybody go.
Thank you, Paul. And Liz.
Welcome.
And Steve. And Luke.
And
Thank
everybody.
you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.